Hello everyone, we have here quadratic equation and we're going to use completing the square method. And normally for completing the square method, we have the leading coefficient of 1, but in here we have the coefficient of 4, so that's other than 1. So in this video, I'll be presenting two ways to solve by completing the square method. So first case will be just leave this leading coefficient of 4, and the second case will be dividing the whole equation by the leading coefficient of 4. So let's do that. We're here on the first method. So we have here the quadratic equation 4x squared minus 3x plus 2 equals 0. So first step, moving the constant to the right. So we have negative 2. And on the left hand side we have 4x squared minus 3x. So here, since the leading coefficient is 4 other than 1, so we have to factor out 4 from these two terms. So we have factoring out 4 is, what we have left on the first term is x squared, and the second term will be 3 over 4 times x. Then the right hand side remains the same, negative 2. And so here we're putting a bracket or parenthesis. Now next step is to find the third term on the left hand side. Whatever term that we write on here, we should write it on the right hand side too, just to balance the equation. So here, to get the third term, to make this left hand side a perfect square, is we have to get the coefficient of the second term. So that is 3/4, that's negative. And to get the third term, we have to do is divide the coefficient of the second term by 2. So that's divided by 2, or we can say 2 over 1. And square it. So we have to square the whole thing. The numbers inside the parentheses can be simplified as negative 3/4 times 1/2. So we have here a division bar, and transforming it into multiplication, we have to take the inverse of the denominator. So we ended up from 2 over 1, we have 1 over 2. And this is square. So that's the equivalent of that. So we have the value of that as negative 3 over 8 square. So we have the value of that, negative 3 squared, that becomes positive. So that's positive 9 over 64. So that's the equivalent of negative 3 over 8 squared. So now we have the third term. This one or this one, the same way. On the left hand side, I prefer writing this one in the expressed as squared. And on the left hand side of the equation, this third term, I prefer writing it this way, the square of this negative number. So we have here, we always put plus over here, plus, and then 3/8 squared, that's 3 over 8 squared. We can always put negative right there, or without the negative, doesn't matter anyway, because we'll be squaring the number. And on here on the right hand side, we can write this one right here. This is simplified of negative 3/8 squared. So that is 9 over 64. So we have here plus 9 over 64. And now, since this value or number is inside the parentheses on the left hand side, and we have a multiplier of 4 right there, this number added to the right must be multiplied by 4 the same way. Alright, so that's times 4. Alright, so we get this. Take this out now. So back to our equation. We have here all the terms inside the parentheses is now a perfect square. So this can be written the same way as now. 4 times the quantity x minus, since this is minus, or we can say there's minus sign right there. So minus 3/8. And since this is a perfect square, so we can write square right there. And the right hand side can be simplified as minus 2 plus 4 over 64, that is 1 over 16, right? So 1 over 16. So we have negative 2 plus 9 over 16. Simplify the fraction on the right. So we have to multiply this by 16 divided by 16, the first term. So we're going to have a common denominator. So this can be simplified as minus 16 times 2, that is 32, that's negative. Then plus 9, and we have common denominator of 16 now. So we ended up with negative 32 plus 9, that is negative 23 over 16. And we have the left hand side remain the same, that is 4 times the quantity x minus 3/8 square. And simplify the equation further, divide by 4 both sides of the equation. So we have x minus 3/8 square equals negative 23 divided by 16 times 4 is 64, right? Since this is written the same way as negative 23 over 16 divided by 4 over 1, and transforming this into multiplication from division because of the division bar right there, there's negative 23 over 16 times taking the reciprocal of the denominator, so you have 1/4 multiplied by 1/4. So that will be 23, that's negative 23 divided by 16 times 4 is 64. Okay, so now simplify the equation further. We have the square right there on the left hand side, so we have to take the square root of both sides of the equation. So we have, cancel those, we have x minus 3/8 equals positive negative square root of negative 23 divided by 64. And this is written the same way as positive negative is square root of negative 23, that is square root of 23 times the square root of negative 1. And here, square root of negative 1 is I. And the denominator is square root of 64, so that is 8. Since 8 squared is 64. Get the value of x. Moving negative 3/8 to the right hand side, so we have negative 3/8 becomes positive 3/8, and then plus or minus square root of 23 times I divided by 8. Now since we have the same denominator, so value of x is equal to 3 plus or minus square root of 23 times I divided by 8. So that's our answer. Now we have the second method. We have the same quadratic equation, 4x squared minus 3x plus 2 equals 0. Now if you can recall, first method, we just let the leading coefficient stay right there, 4. And here in the second method, we'll be dividing the whole equation by the leading coefficient. So we have to divide the whole equation by 4. So we ended up with x squared minus 3 over 4x plus 2 divided by 4, that's 1/2, equals 0. So from here, first step from here is normally putting the constant to the right, so we have negative 1/2. And what we have left on the left hand side, we have x squared minus 3/4 of x, right hand side negative 1/2. And so from here, we just follow the first step that we have in the first method earlier by finding the third term. So that's the same way now. The only difference is that the leading coefficient, we're going to remove that by dividing by the leading coefficient. Here in this case is 4. So just to make the equation with the leading coefficient 1 instead of 4. That's the only difference. So from here, we're going to proceed looking for the third term. So we can make the left side of the equation a perfect square. Alright, so let's do that. So once again, to get the third term, we have to consider the coefficient of the second term, divide by 2, divide that by 2, and square it. So we have negative 3/4 divide by 2, or 2 over 1. So we're going to have negative 3 over 8 and square. So this becomes our third term. So we have negative 3 over 8, and then square it. We just put plus sign right there. And what we do over here on the left, we add the same amount to the right. So what we have here is, if we do it on the right, that's the same amount of this one right here. All we have to do is simplify this now. So, or let's say write the same way, or just leave it like this, or simplify either way. So negative 3/8 squared, so we have 9 over 64. Since negative is, you're squaring it, this becomes positive. So we have 9 over 64. So the left hand side of the equation is now a perfect square. So this can be written the same way as x, since this is minus, so minus, we have here 3/8, and then a square. And then the right hand side, all we have to do is simplify this part. And to simplify the fraction on the right hand side, all we have to do is find the common denominator. We have here 64 and here is 2. Multiply a number to make it 64, so we can have the common denominator 32, right? So we have here now, put it down over here. So we have negative 1/2 times 32 divided by 32, then plus 9 over 64 from there. So simplifying the right hand side of the equation, so we have negative 32, it is because negative 1 times 32, that's negative 32 plus 9, that is negative 23 divided by 64. Since we have here 2 times 32 is 64, so we just combine the whole thing now. And left hand side the same, x minus 3/8 squared. So get rid of the square right there. All we have to do is take the square root of both sides of the equation. So we ended up canceling those. What we have left is x minus 3 over 8 is equals positive negative square root of 23, that's negative, and divide by 64. And this can be simplified the same way as positive negative square root of 23 times square root of negative 1 divided by square root of 64. So x is equal to, moving negative 3/8 to the right hand side, we have positive 3/8, and then plus or minus square root of 23, square root of negative 1, that is I, so times I, divided by square root of 64 is 8. So we now have the same denominator. So value of x is equal to 3 plus or minus square root of 23 times I divided by 8. Or this can be written the same way also as 3 plus or minus I times square root of 23 over 8. So once again, that's the answer. If we compare to the first solution that we have on the first method, it should be the same from right here on the first method. And so that's all for now, and for those new to my channel, I would appreciate it if you can hit the like button and subscribe for more videos. Hit that notification bell so you get updated whenever I upload new videos. Thank you very much. Thank you for watching. I will see you on the next video. Have a great day, everyone. Bye.